So excited to be here with my very, very close, beautiful, wonderful friend, Elisa Bremner, who has been my hiking buddy and my healthy conversation buddy for many years. And we've been working on this for months and months and months to figure out what we want to talk about, because there's so many things we talk about. We came down to gut biome. So we're going to talk gut biome, healthy bacteria, and the relationship between our own guts and biodiversity in the world, because that metaphor is so powerful to understand that our world needs to be not a monoculture of any sort, but to be diverse, biodiverse. People need to be biodiverse. Ecosystems need to be biodiverse. And so does our own personal biome in our guts and our whole bodies. So we're going to throw out the concept of clean and we're going to go down the let's mix this all up. So welcome, Elisa Bremner, registered dietitian. She has an amazing business that is related to pineapples, and she's got a pineapple shirt on. I have my diversity biome shirt sort of on. And we're going to talk pineapples. We're going to talk so many other things. So yay, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm so excited. I do love our walks and our talks, and I learned so much from you, and we have such great discussions. So I was really excited to come on your show and talk about my thing. So anyway, I am a registered dietitian, as Jessica said, which means I went through a master's degree in nutrition education. I did an internship and I took an exam to become a registered dietitian, which has now optionally been allowed to be also called registered dietitian nutritionist, which I actually prefer because I feel like it's more like real world. Like dietitian sounds like very clinical, and nutritionist sounds more like this is the world we live in. This is how we're doing it. You know, we use it every day. Everyone eats pretty much every day, unless you're doing some kind of fasting regimen. So
no, and you make the most important point that like, this isn't about dieting. Like diet has such a negative connotation, right? Like dieting is only about weight. When we think about the word diet and dietitian, like, do we need to go to a dietitian to lose weight? No, the point is we need to go to a nutritionist or a dietitian who understands nutrition, so that what we're doing is improving the health of our body and our resilience. It's not about our weight. If we lose weight in the meantime by eating healthier, that's awesome, right?
Yeah. And also, like, I want to go back to that word of diet, because it really means like way of eating from the Latin. Sure. So like, but you're right. Like when we think about diet, we always think about restriction. So a lot of my business model is about the opposite of restriction, which is abundance. Like when people start thinking about what you can add, not what you want to take away. Coincidentally, that's kind of the topic of our discussion today. Yeah. So I'm excited to dive into that.
Yeah, well, go with that. And just as an aside, so Elisa has this very cool business and a blog, and anybody can subscribe to it. It's just so that very accessible. And the whole idea is, what can we do to just kick up our lives and our health? Just thinking about adding a little bit of, as you said, just add a little bit more healthy stuff. And while you're doing that, maybe you'll take away a little unhealthy stuff, but just keep adding the health and joy, and you will get more resilience and more immunity, and you'll be better for you, your relationships, the planet, all of it, because it's all super positive energy and activity that is what we're talking about here. So, and the gut biome as a biodiversity thing, it's like the more complex, the more interesting, the more diverse, the better. Okay, go ahead.
Right. I just wanted to go back to the pineapple thing because of what you were saying. Yeah. So it just started haphazardly. There wasn't any like serious marketing research done at all, but I just happened to start wearing this pineapple hat around campus on one of my jobs, and people started calling me the pineapple lady. And then when I started my business, I thought, you know what? Like, what is a pineapple? It's a sign of welcome. So like, that's always been what I'm about. Like, there's no judgment. It's not, people hear dietitian, food police. I'm not the food police. Like, I'm about figuring out where you are, like talking to you, figuring out where you are. And like you were saying, like those little things that you can do that can make all the difference in your health. So, and I just want to also go back to what my business actually is, because I've been told I'm not always clear on that. Yes, I am a registered dietitian and I can do consultation for that. But my real passion is the practical side. So I'm like a practical dietitian. I want to get in the kitchen with you and like help you learn how to cook these healthy foods. And for me, it's always been about adding more vegetables, even before I knew like all the research behind plant-based and also how it helps our health, how it helps the planet, all those things. Like I always recognize that the easiest way someone can improve their health is just by adding more vegetables. And that's sort of where it is. So if you're eating meat 3 times a day, fine, let's make one of those meals, plant predominant. Let's make half the plate vegetables, like not to defer to people complain about what the government is telling us. But the good thing about the My Plate is like, that's what they're telling us. Make half your plate vegetables. If we all did that, we would see such an improvement in like chronic disease, like heart disease, the number 1 killer in the country, cancer, diabetes, all these things are like debilitating. So, and also we go back to like, of course, the big thing is longevity now, right?
Health span, but it's health span.
No, but I was going to get to that because like, we don't want to just live a long, long time and have like be on ventilators in the hospital. Like we want to live a long and vibrant life. So we're looking for vitality. And that's what you're talking about, the health span. And that's what choosing the right foods can do for us.
Awesome. So plant forward is the language, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum for years. What's the right language to just make it simple so that when you look at your plate, like ding, 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 plant forward, like what have you come up with lately? Like, if you've got the My Plate thing, like what's a good metaphor or language, just a quick one so that when you talk to people, I'm putting you on the spot, when you talk to people, like how do you just make it really simple? What's the simple language that we can impress upon people who are listening to just add to their daily thinking process?
Right. That's a really good point because there's so much language around the whole like plant-based, vegan, plant forward, plant predominant. Like me being a little bit of a grammar geek, I've always felt like plant-based means what it sounds like, based on plants. That doesn't mean exclusively plants. So like to me, plant-based is not plant exclusive. The general thinking of it, though, like in the wider world, maybe disagrees with me on that. So that's where
let's throw that one out.
So that's why I've sort of, veered towards more like plant forward or plant predominant.
I love
and I guess
forward, right? Like forward means it's sort of in front of me and this is my, so there's a movement to forward, right? So it has so much great language around, pushing the vegetables in front of you, like to be more forward and to push the other stuff away and to have it front and center. I don't know, like what else is coming up for you around using that?
Right. And go back to something you said earlier, which I think is astute, which is when you start adding more stuff, then other stuff sort of goes away. And I like to say not like getting rid of that stuff, but like crowding it out, right? So you're crowding in more vegetables and it's not just like a random thing. Like the reason we're crowding in more vegetables is because they supply so many different nutrients for us. And the important thing, the fiber, which apparently like 10% of us are getting enough fiber. Wow. So, we're talking all about protein. And yes, of course, protein is important. It's like the building blocks of our body, right? But the fiber is the thing that keeps things moving along. Like, so it keeps your body
literally, it moves everything through the rest of your body because it needs to process it, like, and get it moving. So it's actually getting absorbed through where it's supposed to get absorbed.
Now, without even realizing it, I got into our topic because what is the fiber? It's like the food for our gut microbiome. So,
okay. So let's go down that path.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit of definition because we are both word geeks. So tell us what gut biome is. Tell us some of the language we need to know, like bacteria, the probiotic, the biotic part. Like, I don't even know what the right language is. So take us down a little bit of a path of what we need to know so we can have this conversation.
Okay. So for starters, I'm going to say we have more bacteria in our gut than we actually have human cells.
That's like crazy, right? That's like, and bacteria are alive, right? They are literally living beings that are in our bodies. Okay. Let's just recognize.
Right. So like we have these microorganisms in our gut. Mainly they do most of their best work in our colon, our large intestine. So like, that's where the bulk of them are. They're busy doing their work. And they're actually controlling a lot of our body processes. So it's so interesting that, and this is kind of, in the general scheme of things, this is pretty recent science. Like it's not, hundreds of years old. Like this is more recent, past, I don't know, I think a couple of decades, I'm not sure, but that they've discovered how much power these microorganisms in our gut have over our health, over our physical health, over our mental health. Like there's a lot of research going on now between the connection between our gut and our brain and how it impacts. So it's interesting because like our brain affects our gut in our food choice, right? And then it goes the other way because our gut is affecting our brain. And also like
keeping it healthier, right? It's either healthy brain or not healthy brain, depending on what you're feeding. Like you're literally, like, if you think about that language, we're feeding our brain through what we eat. Not, like some of it is we're feeding it through the clutter of shame and guilt and like all this other stuff that's in our brain. We call that feeding. I would use the word feeding for that too. But we are literally feeding our body and our brain with the food choices that we make. Right?
Yeah. And the other interesting part of it is like you said, like you have good bacteria, you have bad bacteria. I don't want to shame the bacteria, but like there are some that help us and some that are not so helpful to us. So the ones that are not helpful to us, which unfortunately a lot of times in this age of like, let's say it, we're eating 60% of our diet from ultra processed food right now, which is insane. Those bacteria like then tell your brain like, I need more of this. I need more of this. And that's where you get a lot of those like cravings for these other foods that are not so good for you. Like it's not strictly in your head. It's not just because it tastes good. It's because your bugs in your gut are literally telling your brain like, I need more of that food that makes me strong.
And this is so important. So let's like go down this a little bit further because I didn't really process this and this is going to change my life. Okay. So I'm sure anybody who's listening, it's going to have a huge impact. So literally the choices we make and let's talk chemicals at some point also, like the other stuff we're putting in with the pesticides and other chemicals. But anyway, because that comes to mind. But the choices of what bacteria we put into our bodies literally give direction to our brain it's not just us being shamed, as you said, shamed and guilt. Like they're actually giving instructions of how to be immune, how to build immunity, how to think in like deep, thoughtful ways, how to sleep probably, right? Like keep going because this is so cool.
Well, I think what I was talking about, and you know me, I want to get to the positive side.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So the converse of it was you're eating foods that support the good bugs, the ones that help you, ones that do all those things, help you have a good night's sleep, help you have the right, create the right hormones to support your body, help you to reduce inflammation, all those things, right? They create metabolites in our gut, right? That are helping us. If we eat the foods that are feeding those, a lot of times what happens is, you'll find now all of a sudden those are the little microorganisms that are craving more food. So I know it sounds crazy, but you do start like losing the craving for the junk food and more craving those healthy foods because all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we need more of that.
And too, like there's some thinking going on and the choices that what's in our body is not because we have all these other microorganisms living in our body. They're actually making decisions too. And they're like, it's not all in our brain. Like there's this gut brain that we've got. And it sounds like this part of this gut brain is actually these other non-human things that are overwhelmingly enormous that are helping make decisions for us. And if we want to make good decisions, we have to think about what they're thinking. That's like crazy.
Right. I mean,
mind blowing.
I don't know enough about what they're thinking or what they're doing. Like I'm not a microbiologist, but I know the like ultimate impact of it. So if we want to start changing, and actually I want to go back to like something we just totally glossed over, which was the reason we started talking about this topic in the first place was the resilience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, oh my God,
thank you for bringing that.
Jessica, we have to talk about this because gut diversity is what gives us our resilience, right? So first of all, I don't want to forget to say this important fact, which is your gut can change within 24 hours.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah. Tell us about timing, like the impact of, go ahead.
Okay. So they did a study comparing, a low fiber, high animal food diet to a extremely high fiber diet. And they tested people's gut microbiome, and they found that the diversity could change. The structure of the microbiome could change within 24 hours. Now, there's resilience there, right? So if you go back to your old way of eating, it just goes back. But if you keep doing that for say 6 months, it becomes like a permanent part of your gut microbiome.
Well, it's like any practice. Like if you think about it as a practice, right? That it's not a one-time thing where you're going to change. Like any new resilience practice that I talk about, that we learn about, is a practice that you have to keep doing it to change your neural networks, your pathways, your gut. Like everything you do is a lifetime commitment. Even after 6 months, if you go back, your body's going to go back, right? And it's going to make bad decisions. So keep this in mind, that like nutrition, plan forward, all of these choices are not I'll do it when I'm on vacation, or I won't do it on my vacation, but it's a lifestyle. Like it's a choice that you get to make. And that's like the biggest part of this for me, right? Like the building resilience is such an intentional opportunity. Like make the choice to be healthier, to make changes long term that might be a little uncomfortable, a little hard, a little work to build up. But like once it becomes a practice and it becomes more natural and second nature, you've got it, right? Like, you can just keep doing that instead of doing what seemed easy before. I find it really hard to eat ultra processed food now, or food dyes. I look at that food and I'm like so icked out. That was so easy to eat not that long ago. So you can change all of it. And as you were saying, you have all this great support from your microbiome to help you make those good decisions. Sorry, go ahead.
Right.
I got so excited. I was like, wow, this is...
I know. I was so interested in what you were saying that I forgot what I was going to say. So yeah. So I remember now. What I was going to say was what you were saying, that it's hard in the beginning because you may make the mental shift, I want to do this. And then your gut's screaming, no way, we liked it the way it was. Yeah. We don't want that. So you have to recognize that it's not always easy right away, but it depends what kind of person you are. For me, I'm a little bit at a time kind of person. Some people are more all or none. I have to just dive in and struggle through it and then I'll be there. For me, and I think for most of the people I've worked with, it's more about making that gradual shift, adding one thing, but one thing that you can do consistently, right? So it's all about being consistent. So if you say, I don't know, I eat, some people, I guess the top group of people are eating most of the meat kind of. So someone might be eating meat 3 times a day. For that person, I know this is going to sound backwards, but there's a reason I'm going to say this. Think about not having meat at night, with your dinner, and not going back to the positive part, not having meat, but having something else, having beans, having mushrooms, having tofu or something like that.
Which I can something that really yummy. Needs the protein. There are other sources of protein. I mean, that's the gist, right? There are so many other healthy.
Yeah. And the reason I'm saying dinner is because even though that's where most people would have their meat if they were only having one meat meal a day, is because that sets off sort of a cascade of improvements. Because if you don't eat it at that heavy meal at dinner, which the protein is much harder to digest if it's coming from animal foods, then it's harder for you to sleep because your body's working on that digestion, right? So setting.
Wait, that's huge. Let's just say that again, that eating meat is a longer process for your body to digest. And if you're eating it in the morning, your body is sort of running around all day and it has time to digest, and it'll interfere with other stuff for sure. But sleep, since I just dropped these episodes about sleep that were just so important, right? Animals make such intentional choices about what they eat, and we don't make the same kinds of intentional choices about what we eat, or many people aren't. That at night, if you're not sleeping well, there is a lot connected to what you ate for dinner. and what time you ate it and what you're eating in the evening and all the snacking and whatever it is. So that's like hugely important.
Yeah. I mean, I would say obviously there's research to support this. From my personal experience, like that was probably the biggest change I noticed when I went, I'm mostly plant-based, I would say. At home, I eat plant-based. I do eat omnivorous sometimes in other places. But that was the biggest change I noticed, which was like my sleep was so improved.
Wow.
And also to get back to the gut, like the quality of your sleep impacts the health of your gut as well.
Yeah.
So it's all like one thing affects the other. And now we're talking about that's like the whole resilient ecosystem, right? Everything's working together.
So I do want to talk about that, but there's something on my mind that I just want to make sure that we talk about because it's really important. Changing habits and making different decisions is hard. Okay. And the most impactful way to make a different decision, really the only way to make a different long-term decision is by aligning it with a sense of purpose, to have a reason to make the change, not just because of some like thing that some expectations of society or whatever that are putting pressure on you to make a different choice. So if you just think I should add this because somebody says it's good for me or because I'll be judged by others from what I'm eating or something, that's not enough to have a sense of real aligned purpose for why you're changing your eating habits and why you care about what's in your gut and why you care about this diverse microbe. Like you have to have an inner sense of what it's going to do for you, that each bite you put in your mouth, picture your long-term future self, right? Like your future self and your lifespan, right? And what we were talking about before, like it matters your vitality. Like if I eat broccoli or if I eat tofu or beans versus a third meal of meat, I will be able to sleep better, think better, long term, that my body will hold out better. Like go down that path a little bit, like the whole connection with a sense of purpose around what you're choosing to eat.
Yeah, I guess for me, it started kind of over COVID when I used to work in a lot of care homes teaching healthy cooking to disabled people. And obviously there was lockdown. So like I was not going out there anymore. So I had more time at home. I made a bunch of videos, for Arc of Westchester, by the way.
They're on YouTube. If anybody's looking, just look up Elisa.
They're on YouTube. That was our very early days. And I don't consider myself a presenter, but I did the best I could at the time. But anyway, the crux of it was I had a lot more time at home to cook, to prepare, to explore, to do research. As a registered dietitian, we always have to do continuing ed throughout our career. And I really loved what I learned about the plant-based diet. And in particular, like the fact that choosing plants actually is good for the planet, like the impact of a plant-based diet versus a meat-centric diet, I'll call it, on, the use of cropland, carbon
factory farming.
I call it like our food print, right? Our food print makes a difference. And by the way, you could Google food print and do your own food print online. Like it's kind of neat. Cool. If you want, I'll give you that link.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. That is neat. I got to do that.
It's like a 3-minute quiz. They ask you a bunch of questions, and it's kind of cool.
Well, it'll wake you up. Like that's the whole idea, right?
Yeah. So I was like, I'm a dietitian, and also like I've been eating kind of healthy, fairly healthy, I'll say, most of my life. And I was like, why aren't we talking about this? This is like the universal solution to everything. And to go back to your point about how hard it is to make a change, like, again, I didn't do it all at once. I didn't suddenly say, that's it. I'm not buying any more meat, dairy, anything. We just started eating, adding more plant-based meals, eating meat less often, eating smaller portions, like making the plate more plant-centric, right? And eventually, like, literally, it's so funny. It's my husband who said it. He's like, you know what? Like, do we really need it? And I was like, you know what? Probably not.
How great is that you influence the people around you without judging and shoulding, and instead you're role modeling and teaching and exploring, and the people around you start to get it and they think about it in their own way, and they're like, wait a minute, this makes so much sense. It's not working for me either. Let's do this together.
Right. And also, of course, like first is flavor. So it has to taste good, right? It has to be not that complicated because I'm not going to spend 4 hours in the kitchen preparing a meal unless it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, I guess. But so like that was sort of, there's so many great resources out there. And I felt like I could pull together a bunch of stuff. And I started doing some cooking classes with people, and they'd say they would be excited about it because they'd be like, wow, I didn't know it was this easy. I didn't know it could taste this good.
There's a really important point that you're making that I'm thinking of, in that there's you said you started slowly, right? Like there was something that just felt like you needed to move in a certain direction. And there's also moments of aha moments of change that, like a visit to a factory farm. The moment I recognized that, when I was at Loggerhead, teaching in the aquariums for early on, I was like, oh my God, these fish are individually sentient. Like, what the friggin' are we doing? Not respecting the animal world. Like that's where I come from on a part of what drives me. So like, I look at meat that's around me, and I'm like, I picture it as the actual animal in a factory farm or whatever it is. And the smile on his face, like, that works for me. And it's changed my life. Like we all have these moments. Like you had this moment where you were, maybe it's somebody who learns about gut microbe and they're like, my God, what am I doing? Like mixing crap in, ultra processed crap. I'm just impacting my whole body. And that's why I'm not feeling well. And whatever it is, like there could be a moment that changes everything, or there could just be this commitment to like, figure out how to do it better, and how to do it better in community, and to like really being on a super learning track. Anyway, I just think it's really important to like have a sense of what can move you forward to make better decisions. Sometimes it's one aha moment that really makes a big impact. And somehow it's just like this ongoing thinking of like, like Ross, her husband, like, wait a minute, this all makes sense. Like, why are we doing this? Let's just make a different decision. Like all the little pieces add up.
And like the other piece of it though, which is, I think, the most important thing, is like, it's always a work in progress. There's always room for, like, I'm not even going to say less than perfect. Nothing is perfect. Like we like, you shouldn't not do something just because you can't do it 100%. And that's right. That's like where I come from. Like, it doesn't make sense for that person who's eating meat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner to suddenly go cold turkey.
Because then they fail and they give up, versus knowing that it's just a step. You're moving forward.
Versus like for one person, it might be just like adding mushrooms to the burger mix so that it's like half mushrooms and half meat.
That's the whole point, is we learn and we grow, like, and research gets better and we get more access to research, and research gets more honest. Like, the change in, as you said, we've only been understanding more about this in the last couple of decades. That was access to the internet and the information that's out there, not just that the research was being done. Part of it might have been, a big growth in research, but it was access to the conversations and to the raw research so that we could make decisions on our own instead of being told by the lobbying powers that we should be eating milk, drinking milk, and we should be eating beef.
I do want to talk about the research for a second though, because pretty much, as we know now from the internet, anyone can find a research study to support their opinion, right? So when our decisions become emotional versus data driven, that's a different story. Like, one research study does not make a health recommendation, shall I say, right? We have decades of research supporting the idea that eating a diet predominant in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds is good for our health, right? For longevity, for cardiac health, for preventing diabetes, even for preventing certain types of cancer. And that's like thousands of research studies, probably. Someone might come up with a research study tomorrow that says, like, eating the carnivore diet is good for, I don't know, acne or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making.
You never know, right? Yeah.
But like, that doesn't mean like we throw out 50 years of research. It means that, okay, this is interesting. Let's dive into that more. It doesn't become like a fact until like it can be repeated. It can be, it's done with a large population of people. It's done over time. It's shown like long-term consequences. So we have to be like careful about the research, I think.
Absolutely. Great input. Thank you. Let's make, the basic knowledge that's out there has grown, and clearly it's all about moving towards plant forward. And we need to talk more about the diversity of our gut biome. And like, if you find something on social media that somebody says is the way you should be living, and it doesn't make sense, but it feels easier, that is something you should process, right? Like, am I doing this for the right reasons, or am I doing this just to make life easier? Like, and what are your priorities?
Yeah. I mean, and I do want to go back to what you just said about the diversity in the gut microbiome, because that was the main crux of our talk.
By the way, you can see why Elisa and I have these long conversations, because we're always like, oh my God, that's so interesting. Let's go down that path. And oh my God, you just said this. Okay, let's talk diversity and how we came to this conversation.
Okay. As you did sort of allude to at the beginning, the food choices we make in terms of diversity helps us become more resilient. So if you think about like farmland, right? We know that monocrops are not healthy for the planet because it's like they don't have the right combination of...
Wait, it's because not everybody knows what monocrops are. You and I are like obsessed with it, but tell us about monocrops. Tell us about The Biggest Little Farm, yours and my favorite film in the whole world. Go down that path and explain a little, because it really matters where our food is coming from, the journey and to connect back to the sources of our food, very, indigenous thinking that is bringing back, coming back into a lot of the work, that's being done. Go down that path. Tell us.
The Biggest Little Farm did change my life a bit as well. So to go back to the thing about the plant-based, I read the China study when it first came out. That was a long time ago, which is the original book that, showed all the research about how this plant-forward diet is, I'm not going to say the best diet, because of course nutrition is very individual, but on a population level is, the healthiest diet for us. I knew all that.
And for our planet.
Change. Right. That at that time we weren't talking about that. That came later with the Lancet Commission and the Planetary Health Diet, which is also very interesting. I would recommend you look into it, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But then I watched The Biggest Little Farm, and the story is these people get to a farm, they buy land, which is basically dirt. It's hard dirt. You can't even dig a shovel into the dirt, right? It's like nothing. There is no life on this place. And through 6 years, I think, of trials and tribulations, they convert this into a thriving ecosystem. So at the soil is good. There's flooding at all the neighbor farms, which are monocrops, one thing growing, right? Their farm was fine because the soil was so healthy that it was soaking up the water and protecting everything. There were so many interesting things in that, because they found they had snails in their orchard or something. And then they realized that they could let the ducks roam free, and the ducks would go in the orchard and eat all the snails, and everything worked together. The reason I love that is because I feel our gut is sort of an analogy for that, right? Everything's working together. And you mentioned probiotics, which are a big thing, a couple of years ago. Now I think they're fading a little bit. Now I don't know. But the problem with some of those is a probiotic is they catch a specific strain of bacteria that they know is been proven to be healthy. It has to be scientifically determined, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a piece of it that's missing, because when we eat actual live probiotics in food, there's way more than that, those 3 strains or whatever.
It's mono farming versus regenerative biodiverse farming.
Right. So yes, there is a place for probiotics for some people. Absolutely. But the first line of defense is always going to be get it from food. So what are probiotic foods? You inspired me because we were talking about it, and I've kind of gone off the fermented food train for a little while. So I actually bought more sauerkraut yesterday at the supermarket.
Okay. I just want everybody to know there's an upcoming episode about fermentation and related to winemaking with this amazing woman, Marta Mendonca. So we're starting fermentation now, and we're going to keep going. So, because it's really important.
Okay. So those are So that's one thing that's good for your gut health. Then the first piece, which I should have probably said first, but is the prebiotics. Like there's prebiotics, probiotics, and then postbiotics, which are like the metabolites of these bacteria in our gut doing their fancy dance, right? Whatever. So the prebiotics are mainly the fruits and vegetables, the whole grains, those things that we were talking about before. Legumes are huge. And like, not to say if there were a superfood, I think it would be beans and lentils because they're just so magical, like protein packed, fiber packed, and like what we were saying, like all those extra phytonutrients that you wouldn't find if you just tried to make like take out the fiber, like put in a fiber supplement or something. So yeah, I love beans. But of course we know there's no one superfood. We need diversity. And that's really to come back to like what we were talking about. Diversity always leads to resilience. So like on the farm, the diversity in the way they structured the farm and having they had like an orchard and vegetables growing and the animal farm and everything working together. They had resilience when there was flooding. So the same thing, like in our gut, when we have that whole, like, I guess, farm of different microorganisms, they work together to like defend us against things that we don't necessarily want going on down there.
And to help us in a positive sense, to help us be able to do the stuff we want to, like to pass the food through effectively and to not feel sick from our food. And
I have learned that eating up to 30 different plants per week is kind of a great goal for our health, like has been supported in the research to help to improve our health and longevity and all that. So I haven't done it in a while, and now you're going to inspire me to do it again.
I remember the charts. You had given them to me. I'm like, okay, how many? And like different herbs count. So if you have pizza and it has oregano on it, like that counts. But it's such a light up kind of thing to think, oh my God, I've got these 30 different things that are in my life and I didn't even realize it and that they're all good for me.
Right. So like what I was saying before about beans being a superfood. Mm-hmm. Yes, but I'm not going to eat, like, even though chickpeas my favorite, I'll admit it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to eat chickpeas every day. That's not making my gut healthy. My gut is becoming healthy by eating, chickpeas and black beans and lentils and broccoli and onions and mushrooms and you'd be surprised how quickly it adds up. Maybe you only like that. I work with a lot of kids from urban areas who, maybe have not had a lot of exposure to a variety of foods, right? And they have a hard time latching on to that, like having a new food. So I'm excited, like if they add a new vegetable, like, okay, the only vegetable I eat is broccoli and it has to be covered with cheese, right? So now our goal is like, try one new vegetable a week.
Everything tastes good covered in cheese and salt. So like, try a new one. What's the difference?
Or deep fried, right?
Right, exactly.
I'm not recommending that, but anything that gets you out of your comfort zone. For example, a few years ago, I went to an event at the Jacob Bird Center, which was a film about bugs. I don't know, I told you about this. So after it, they had a reception where you could eat bugs. I did it because, like, you have to.
Yep, I did it recently too. Same thing. Yep,
you got to walk the talk. Yep. I didn't love it, but I tried it. So, like, that's the point. You can try things. And also, again, you may try it this week and you don't like it. You might try it again in a year. Don't be shy about trying it again because our taste buds change. And it also has to do with how our microbiome.
If we're moving towards changing what we eat, just because we didn't like something when we started that process, certainly doesn't mean that now we won't be excited to include something new. Like it's a really practical point.
Right. And like on the converse side, a lot of we only touched on the ultra processed food thing. When we're eating ultra processed foods, a lot of them, like you may go to the supermarket and like now there's, 40,000 different foods in the supermarket or something like that, which is so interesting because, like a few decades ago, it was like maybe 800 or something like that. So I just think like you look there and it looks like there's so much variety. Like I can go to the yogurt aisle and I had a hard time like choosing. There's like 800 kinds of yogurt alone. Yep. But if you go in the middle, like forget about it. There's 400 different types of cookies. But guess what? Like they're all made out of the same stuff. So even though it looks like variety, it's not variety. It's the same thing. So, which is why I think ultra processed food has such a negative impact on our health, because we're losing the diversity. And I just heard,
and we don't realize it. Like Lucky Charms has all these different color, the pretend color, and you could think, oh, my cereal is totally diverse, right? I've got red things and green things and blue things, and you're like, oh my God, it's actually, if you stop to read the nutrition thing, they're all the same. They just have different food dyes in them. Like, it's one ultra processed food. So like, that's such a huge practical tip that's so helpful. Like, look at the ingredients on the foods, the ultra processed foods you're eating. And there's the same, I don't know, what is it, 5 or 10 ingredients that are going to be across your cereals and your Cheetos and your, I don't know, whatever. And go around the outside circle of your supermarket, and you've got thousands of whole individual foods that are not on that ingredient list.
Right. And I always teach, like, eat the rainbow, because a lot of times, like, colors are a symbol of, or a representation of the diversity of nutrients in a food, right? And that makes sense. But when I'm with the kids, like, and I say, eat the rainbow, and they're like, taste the rainbow, Skittles?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I always have to say, no, not Skittles, not taste the rainbow. Eat the rainbow. We're talking about fruits and vegetables, right?
Eat the natural rainbow. Yeah. It's actually a cool thing. Like, if you make your plate up, like in terms of like what we can remember to process, that'll remind us really easily of how to do this and why it matters. Like, look at your plate, right? Like, I remember for years, my son was just he had all these allergies, and his food plate was so white and yellowish, right? And beige. And I literally would, like, if I had to come up for something to take away as some sort of weird punishment, I would take away one of those white foods, like cheese. It's like still part of our history of how do you parent well, like with that. It's like you add a color instead of another white item or white or yellow or beige item on your plate. It can only be good for you as long as it's not created by food dyes and it's actually created naturally. Like, look at your plate. Yeah. Does your plate look right? Like, it's not just a diversity thing, but diversity is so simple if you think about it by color.
Right.
Even the different color, like, it's not one color green. Look at your background.
Yeah, that forces you to be, like, more mindful about what you're eating and really pay attention to what you're eating, right? And enjoy it. Like, you can eat it with your eyes before you even eat it with your mouth.
Yes. I love that. Okay. So a few more practical tips, last word of wisdom, and then thank you for changing our mindsets. Okay. Give us some more practical tips.
Practical tips.
If there's any left, like, right? We talked about a lot.
Well, like, the practical tip, I think, is, I guess, going back to my superfood, like, the best place to start for me is beans, because beans add so much. Now, if you're not used to eating a lot of fiber, the most practical tip I can give you is take it slow a little bit, right?
Right. Because then you're going to hate it. You're going to be like, I'm not eating beans. I'm
not even talking about that. Right. You might have bloating. You might have other problems, right? So you want to take it easy. What the point we were just saying about eat the rainbow, thinking about the color on your plate, thinking about the diversity on your plate. Again, like, we as consumers have a tremendous amount of power over what gets grown and sold to us, right? So if we create that demand of a diversity of foods, and by the way, according to the USDA, like, vegetables and fruits are considered like specialty crops, which means they don't get all the same subsidies as the commodity crops, like, corn, grain, wheat, soy. Most of the soy is grown for animal feed, right? So us creating that demand, like, right now, we don't grow enough of those vegetables for everyone to follow the USDA My Plate guide. We don't grow enough. So that tells you we're not eating enough, right? Obviously, we're importing some, but, like, our food system doesn't match what's good for our health. Wow. And, like, for me, I think that's the biggest goal, is that we want ultimately to have a food system that supports our health.
Policy-wise, which at the center of it, right? Because and we can influence policy.
We can do our part by, I say, take climate action with your fork, right? So it's one of those things, like, a lot of the climate action stuff is, like, about restriction or doing without, or feels like austerity or whatever. But, like, in terms of food, it's the opposite. It's like abundance. You're creating abundance. You're taking that beige plate and turning it into a beautiful, colorful plate with different textures and flavors, and think about like all the amazing herbs and spices that make food so good, right? So
Not
all
just
those
salt.
things, right? So, I think it's an expansion, not a restriction.
Yeah. I mean, I would say one more thing, that is that I think of a lot that you certainly help me learn. Each individual food is such a beautiful food in itself. So like these mixing things together so that you don't recognize them. This isn't anything new, like eating whole food. And on your plate, thinking about if you can actually identify each individual food and, separate from the herbs and spices that are part of it. But if you see your lentils and you see your broccoli and you see your chicken or whatever it is that is on your plate, if each one is shining at you with its own identity, each one then you can be sure has all the good stuff that comes with it. But if you're eating things that are all mixed together so you don't even know what you're eating because it's ultra processed and whatever, like you don't have any idea what you're getting.
I love how you just put that. Because it's true, like the processed food, like they may process it and take stuff out and then put stuff back in, now it's enriched or fortified or whatever, but you're losing something along the way in the processing. So our bodies are designed to process the food. So
that's huge.
So like we have to make it work that way.
Processing it for us, we actually benefit from doing the processing ourselves. Like just picture how the food moves through your body. Like you don't need that starter point where they've already done all that fermentation and whatever. And like we're built for that and we need to use it or else we'll lose it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Wow. I love that. Okay. I have another question. I know we're going long, but can you talk for a moment about like chemicals and pesticides and organics? Like, we've talked about the way food is made, but what's the impact on our bodies from all that other stuff that we're bringing in relative to, this conversation could be many hours, but like related to our gut microbe.
Okay. All right. So, I'm glad you brought that up. This is not really a special research topic of mine. So I don't, I can't speak to that as much as I can say, I don't like to get caught up in that because at the end of the day, our health is based on a bigger picture. Like, yes, of course, I'd love to see a world where we're not using all kinds of chemical fertilizers and inputs in our food system. But all the research supporting plant predominance, eating more fruits and vegetables is based on all food, conventional. So these are the same things that have been grown in the same way for, decades, right? It's still beneficial.
It's better to eat broccoli than say I'm not eating it because I don't have organic broccoli. You're still you're better off eating the food than avoiding foods that aren't deemed organic.
Right.
That's a huge point.
I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering, right? And at the end of the day, like I'd rather you take that conventional apple and wash it and eat it than not have it because you're scared that it might be tainted with pesticides.
Or that you can't afford it. So you'll eat the cheap food and that'll become secondary. Like what I'm eating.
It's a whole other podcast, Jessica.
I know. We'll get you back. We'll get you back.
I'm coming back.
Okay. But the main practical point is, and I remember my pediatrician saying this to me many years ago with my kids when they were little. He's like, just get them to eat the foods. The secondary is how they were processed. And at the time, there wasn't as much organic anyway, but like, just get them to eat it and then it'll become part of their lives and it'll help them.
Right. Obviously, we both dream of a food system where everyone has access to affordable, healthy, untainted food. But we're not quite there yet, and we can all be healthier by including more plants in our diet.
One more practical tip that I'm offering up, for you to follow up on is you need to take a healthy food like coffee or a smoothie that has all the healthy ingredients, and then you add all this crap to it. And the question is, how do you move forward a bit so that you're keeping these whole healthy foods actually good for you? But
I'm glad you brought up smoothies because as we figured out before. Okay, June 21st is coming up, National Smoothie Day. Smoothies are an awesome way to add diversity to your diet because, and especially like I'm not going to say just kids because I know plenty of adults that don't eat vegetables at all. but you can put vegetables in a smoothie. I make a carrot cake smoothie. It's amazing. Like every kid I've ever given it to loves it.
There's a lot of sugar in carrots.
You can put spinach in smoothies. It has fruit in it also. Like I do a combination. But the whole idea is like when you put it in a smoothie, like first of all, spinach has zero flavor when you put it in a smoothie. It just blends in with whatever else it gets mixed with, right? If you add bananas to any smoothie, like the banana is overpowering and it makes it so creamy if you freeze them. It's a good way to prevent food waste. Your bananas go brown, peel them, chop them, put them in the freezer. But back to the smoothie thing, like also in the smoothie, you can add other things. Like whenever I make a smoothie, I'll add like a tablespoon of ground flaxseed. I'll add some wild blueberries. Might add some spinach. So you can add, you could have a smoothie with like 5 or 6 different plants in it. You're already like a quarter of the way.
Of the whole week.
I have to do the math. You're a fifth of the way towards your 30 plants a week, right? Just in one cup. Again, remember, like portions, if you're thinking about weight control, of course, you have to think about the fact that it's much easier to drink food than to eat food. So you could get into trouble there. But if you're paying attention to the portions, it's good. And if you're just trying to get like nutrition and calories in, it's an awesome way to do that. But like you say, like you don't need to add the sweeteners, the sugars, the honey, the whatever, maple syrup. Sometimes if I really am like craving something a little sweet, I'll throw a date in there. Like it's basically like solid sugar, but you get other nutrients. You're getting all the phytonutrients, you're getting the fiber, whatever.
Wait, I have a question. So many people add protein powder, which goes back to that like processed, narrow offering of additional, supplements.
And again, like
thoughts on protein powder?
Needs must. Like I have used protein powder on occasion, but I will tell you like a secret that I learned not too long ago. You can actually add beans to a smoothie and it makes it creamy and you're getting protein and fiber and you're not getting all the other garbage. I would say in terms of protein powder, I would be careful. Look at the ingredients. Like it always goes back to look at the ingredients. See if you're putting it, if it has ingredients that you really want to put in your body, then, go for it. I always found the protein powders, the flavored protein powders to be very sweet. So even when I did use them, I would use like half the amount. And then because by the way, all other plants contain protein also. So if you're bulking it up with, flaxseed and beans and spinach and all that, like it's still going to have more protein than just a scoop of protein powder with some water.
Okay. So that's like such an important lesson. And one of the things I've looked up over in recent years is just like literally Google protein in plants and you'll be mind blown. Like it feels like we don't get that education that we're always thinking vitamins from plants, but like plants have and whole grains have a tremendous amount of protein as opposed like not needing the enrichment of adding the artificial or the processed. Like it's
like obviously they have a lot of volume because it's fiber and water, but proportional to their calories, they have a tremendous amount of protein. So if you're thinking about keeping your blood sugar stable, weight loss, any of those kind of obviously heart disease, like the saturated fats in animal foods are not going to be very good for you. And if you're thinking about getting a lot of your protein from plants, like it's a great idea. But again, like you probably couldn't eat the volume of broccoli that you would need to get protein. So that's where you have to start being more mindful about like going for those more protein dense sources.
You can also add soy milk, right? Or almond milk or something to your smoothie instead of water right?
The soy milk from Trader Joe's has just 2 ingredients, like soybeans and water.
Yeah. Like almonds just, I mean, we can go down a whole nother path.
Look at the label.
Right. Of like what goes into making these milks. And we're going to step aside from that now because there's no such thing as perfect. We started out the podcast saying that, right? So let's wrap up this amazing conversation with exactly that. Like because I know this is a big mantra of yours. Like we're not looking for what some conceptually call perfect, right? Like give us your last words of wisdom around this whole, we're not going for perfect. What are we going for?
We're going for, obviously practice, not perfection, right? We're working towards it. And then like, just going back to that whole topic of resilience, like the whole fact that we're using a variety of foods, that we're protecting our gut, that we're, there's other lifestyle habits, physical activity, getting good sleep, stress reduction, all those things, by the way, also impact your gut. The fact that you're doing all these things means that we are resilient. So like, if we don't do something, quote unquote, perfectly, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It doesn't undo the whole thing.
Learn from it, learn from it. Like learn from a choice you made that you're not really sure was the right choice to make. And instead of shaming yourself and guilting yourself, this was episode 1 of this podcast. It wasn't a mistake. It was the best you could do in the moment. And learn from it. Learn like, why did I eat that bag of chips? Because I was so tired that I couldn't really, and I didn't have anything else accessible in my house to go for. And that's what was the easiest thing to grab at, or that was the most colorful thing to buy at the supermarket that was facing me on the checkout aisle. And I couldn't help myself because I was tired and I was hungry. Like make, really intentional, mindful decisions from when you learn from things that you feel like weren't quite perfect.
Right. And also I want to add to that. Sometimes we can intentionally do quote unquote the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
Food is like, for me, food is enjoyment. Maybe not for everyone, but for me, food is enjoyment.
No, that's what we're tuned in for.
If I want to have a piece of cake, I'm going to have that piece of cake and I'm going to enjoy it. Like I'm going to be mindful about it. I'm going to recognize like this is, and I don't know if it's still in the guidelines, actually, I'm thinking about it, but like in previous dietary guidelines, like when we had the pyramid, they always had a category called discretionary calories, which was like 10% discretionary calories, right? Which was a nod to this whole idea of like resilience. Like we can do, some people say 80-20, right? Choose mostly, make mostly those good choices and then enjoy the rest. Like, don't feel shame about it. Enjoy it. Use it. Like, take advantage. Fine. Like, life gets in the way. Or you may want to enjoy, like, it's your birthday. You want to have a piece of cake. Not a big deal.
Love
it.
So
I think it's to remember to be intentional about enjoying the things that we might consider not perfect.
Yeah,
because
sometimes
we just perfectly imperfect.
Go wild. Sometimes we just really should be going wild. Anyway, thank you so much. We'll have Elisa back for many more long conversations in the coming years because I just get lit up every time I talk to her, and hopefully you did too.
Love talking to you,
and
Jessica.
Hey, and we're going to go out for a hike soon, so we'll continue this. And thank you. You know what? Words of wisdom, like you don't need to be perfect. Take the mindful, intentional, positive steps forward, and just make life a little bit better every day for your health, for your joy, for your community, for your planet. So thank you. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Jessica.
This has been a production of BLI Studios, produced by me, Kai. Follow along with our other BLI produced shows at balancinglifesissues.com/podcast-BLI. Got an idea for the show? Email me, Kai, at balancinglifesissues.com. And don't forget to stay in touch with your host, Jessica, at jessica@winwinwinmindset.com. Anything else to add, Miles?
Yeah.